to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate representing Howard County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Today, we start a new day and a new month, and we are staring down the final week of session, so this reflection seemed appropriate. The things to do have been done, well, for the most part. The people we need are in place, almost. We are ready, or as ready as we will be. Bless this most perfectly imperfect beginning. May we find the right people to do the right things as we go. May we discover that what we needed was right here all along. And may we remember to stop and marvel at each moment of magic as it floats by. Blessed be and amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 14th, 2025.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So orders, petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Chief Executive. The clerk will read the executive order. Clerk reads the title.
Executive Order 01.01.2025.09, proclaiming an extended session of the Maryland General Assembly.
Recognizing the Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
So much we consider the reading of the executive order.
So ordered. Hearing no objection, the message is ordered, journalized. Message from the Senate, consent calendar number 25. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the first bill and committee assignment.
Senate Bill 382, Senator Kagan, House Rules.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much we consider the reading of Senate Bill 382 be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objection, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. Yea and nay consent calendar number 1. House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 3.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of House Bill 3 be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Special order calendar number 58. Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Speaker. All my questions have been answered.
Go ahead.
Madam Speaker.
House Bill 503, Land Use, Regional Housing Infrastructure Gap, Housing for Jobs Act. Favorite report is amended and adopted.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 453320/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment adds residential real estate owners to the commission or work group. Would ask the body consider that amendment.
Yes. Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the good delegate for his amendment. We've given it due consideration. We meditated over it. A few candles were lit, and ultimately we've agreed to accept your amendment and consider it friendly. Thank you.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I got an amendment at the desk. Amendment 753-625/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading an amendment.
So ordered.
Friends, what this amendment does, I believe on page 8 of the bill talks about approving housing projects for overcrowded schools. And it says for at least 5 years or a period granted by the local jurisdiction. So it doesn't seem right that we would approve a housing project at an overpopulated school. So what this amendment says is the counties can push this off even further and not build the housing project and not overcrowd the schools until the problem is fixed. So I would move the amendment and really hoping for a 2-0, maybe even a friendly amendment accepted. How about that? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank
Floor
you,
leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the good delegate from Anne Arundel for getting this amendment to me about a minute before the session convened. Appreciate the thoughtfulness there. My good friend from HGO. I would urge the body to reject this amendment. It isn't needed. It suggests that somehow this bill changes the way local jurisdictions make decisions about their schools, and that's not the case. The Department of Housing and Community Development has no authority over school construction, design, planning decisions, so this amendment is unnecessary. I'd urge the body to resist the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. All righty.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support this amendment. We talk about capacity, and this amendment offers an opportunity that we will not have overcrowding in our schools. We debated this heavily last year on this floor. Majority of the schools in my county are at 105, 110, 115, 125% of capacity. I stand to support the amendment from the good delegate from St. Mary's County.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I hope everyone talking right now is going to be supporting the capital budget and all the money in there for school construction. I really appreciate everyone's interest in school capacity. This amendment seeks to preempt our locals from making decisions about adequate public facilities ordinances. We had a lot of debate last year about whether or not that was a good idea, and ultimately we left adequate public facilities ordinances in the hands of our local government. So if St. Mary's County or Anne Arundel County wants to change how they do school capacity in projects, that is perfectly allowed under state law currently. In fact, this amendment seeks to give the Department of Housing and Community Development power it doesn't currently have, which is to approve construction projects in your jurisdictions. So this amendment doesn't make some technical sense, and I also think it's wrong on the merits. Right now, we let the locals decide whether or not to freeze a project based on school capacity, and for now, I think that should continue, so I'd urge the body to resist the amendment.
Okay. All right. Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? This is an additional amendment.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 633325/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise?
Madam Speaker, thank you.
Floor Leader.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
We jumped right into this here at 10:25. If you could review for us, and I apologize for not getting you that amendment sooner. It literally was handed to me as I walked on the floor. So what this bill does is allow the state to have influence and authority over local planning and zoning. Would that be a safe statement to make?
I would differ. The intent of the bill is to strengthen local jurisdictions' efforts to expand housing production, and it aims to do that in a very customized and targeted way that addresses the conditions, the aspirations, and the procedures that each jurisdiction uniquely has.
I'm not sure I would say that it is taking into account those unique requirements. The fiscal note says it requires expeditious approval and prohibits denial without sufficient justification of housing development by local jurisdictions. So that sounds to me like the state is taking a more active role in planning and zoning and housing community development.
So I appreciate that concern, and we really have wrestled with the tension between states' interests and the local jurisdictions' aspirations, procedures, authorities, and desires. I would draw your attention not to the fiscal note, but to the reprint. And in the reprint, you'll see that this bill does three things. It first establishes a commission, and if you'll bear with me 1 second, because I think it's worth saying that we did just get this amendment about 5 seconds after the good delegate from Anne Arundel's amendment. Yes, so the bill is amended, establishes a commission that's called the Home Commission. That stands for Housing Opportunities Made Equitable Commission. The members of that commission are representative geographically and other qualities. Those members will help the state support jurisdictions as they set and attempt to meet their housing targets. The second thing the bill does is it works with jurisdictions to set housing production targets on a 10-year increment. So starting on January 1st, 2026, and then every 10 years after that, the Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD, will work with each jurisdiction, each county and city and municipal corporations that have zoning authority to set targets. And that's something new. That's something new that we haven't done. It gives jurisdictions the opportunity to set their own targets for housing production. And the information used in setting those targets, it's very localized, very custom for each county and city and municipal corporation that has zoning authority. Lastly, the bill requires the department to issue an annual report on whether jurisdictions have met their targets, analyze what's going well, what's not going well, what supports are needed, what adjustments may be needed. That's what the bill as amended does.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate that. I did notice quite a bit of the bill was stricken in the reprint. So, I noticed that on page 12 of the bill, it says, on or before January 1, 2026, and every 10 years thereafter, the department shall establish housing production targets for the state and county. Well, I could see that might be useful in a county that does the CZMP process every 20 years. But Baltimore County does indeed take this very responsibly, and they do a comprehensive zoning and planning project every 4 years. So the amendment before us is simple. It says, because this bill works on a 10-year target, Baltimore County's comprehensive zoning map process is completed no later than every 5 years. The county shall be exempt from the requirements of this title. So we're actually doing more than this bill does, and we are, Baltimore County, setting these targets and these goals on a local level through our county council that does a great job of doing this every 4 years. So I believe that Baltimore County should be exempt from that part. And we can give you a report, but I don't think that the state setting housing goals should be preemptive over the local county. My county councilman does an amazing job, as do all 7 of them, and I prefer to leave this in the hands of our local government and not have the state override that.
So thank you again for the amendment and for explaining the intent of the amendment. I would again ask the body to resist the amendment, and here's why. First, Baltimore County could be a great model for other jurisdictions with its well-organized, comprehensive planning process. That's fantastic. But the state does not, in this bill, attempt in any way to override, undermine, or rewrite those county comprehensive planning procedures, calendar. It doesn't touch that. What it does is, as amended, the bill states that every county and municipal corporation that exercises zoning authority will work with the state to set targets. These targets are non-binding, and the process for having each jurisdiction work with the department actually sets up a really strong and rational regulatory consistency standard, so that across our state, we're all working together to make sure that each jurisdiction builds, produces the amount of housing it uniquely needs on a timeline, supported and encouraged by the department and the home commission, of which every jurisdiction has a voice, on which every jurisdiction has a voice. So I'd ask the body to resist the amendment.
I appreciate that. I would say that local control is always best. And people in Baltimore County work diligently at this at a much higher level than this bill actually includes. But I think that sending a message to Baltimore County that we trust you, and obviously saves money, because we don't need the state of Maryland to micromanage what we're doing. And I would say the same for other counties, but with us having an every four-year CZMP process, we don't need this. So for those philosophical reasons, where I believe in local control and local decision making, and this bill trusts in state control, I'm going to still press my amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'll just say in closing, Madam Speaker, I urge the body to resist the amendment. The well-intentioned, I think the bill is misunderstood. This is not a preemption bill. It's really important to make that clear. The committee understood very well the concerns about that. There is always going to be a tension, and this bill, as amended, respects that. Baltimore County will continue to carry out its established comprehensive planning and other decision making. The thing this bill does that's important and really special, something we can be proud to vote for, is that it allows our entire state to work together to make sure that each jurisdiction has a role, maybe even a leadership role in the case of Baltimore County, in showing how to produce housing that our people need. Our state's 96,000 housing units short. We're not serving the needs of our constituents. This bill will allow us to do that. I urge the body to resist the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Clerk, call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 59. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 911, real property, landlord and tenant, family child care homes. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My questions have been answered.
Okay. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 60. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1348, consumer protection, solicitation following a disaster prohibition. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Maker of the motion, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 1348473625/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
I think this is a relatively simple amendment. I certainly appreciate the nature of this bill. What this amendment does is it actually strikes...
Can you hold 1 second? Sure. We don't think we have the amendment up here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
House Bill 1348.
Yeah, it's Amendment 473625/1.
Amendment number 1.
Can I go, Madam Speaker? Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So what this amendment does is it actually just makes this, frankly, a statewide bill. So there were some committee amendments that allow flexibility for local jurisdictions to be able to make different policies and procedures with respect to this. Certainly understand the need for local flexibility with certain things. However, I think when we're talking about disaster responses, it's important to kind of have a uniform policy and procedure across jurisdictions. I live in a district where we're prone to flooding and things like that, and that's not just unique to my part of Baltimore County. You could have that happen in Harford County or in Baltimore City or other things like that. So I think it's important to make sure that there is certainty across sort of jurisdictions, and that's what this amendment would do. It just would make sure that there is not different time periods or standards set in different counties and jurisdictions.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, thank you. And thank you to the maker of the amendment for providing the amendment earlier and having a brief discussion about the purpose of the amendment. I urge the body to reject this amendment. Ultimately, first of all, this bill was heavily amended in our committee to make sure that we took into account what local jurisdictions need. And I find this a little strange that, the amendment makers, a fellow delegate has argued that we should do more local deference, and now we're saying we shouldn't do local deference. So a little confused here. But ultimately, I think the reason that we decided to ensure that counties may impose is because there's not uniformity across our state of what is how cities and counties and towns are laid out. Row homes in Baltimore City are going to have different distance requirements than homes that are next to water. Et cetera. So it's important that local jurisdictions have the ability to set the parameters of how they want to make sure that in-person solicitation doesn't take place. And I also want to highlight in the bill, it says that it may impose. It's not shall, they may impose. So again, I urge the body to reject this amendment for those reasons.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Floor Leader, for that. And I appreciate the conversation we had about it, and I certainly understand what you're saying there. However, I have some serious concerns that some counties could potentially create circumstances with restrictions that frankly could end up being unconstitutional. We've seen laws like this around the country, not this exact law, but laws that kind of are in this same spirit, be struck down for imposing sort of undue restrictions on commercial speech. And I'm concerned that if we leave the counties the ability to do that, we could end up with a circumstance like that.
Yeah, again, I think that'd be an issue for the counties to determine, and I'd also like to highlight the Attorney General office also supports this bill if you want to look on the system. So again, I urge the body to continue to resist this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the gentleman's amendment from Baltimore County. It's interesting, we had a real estate bill earlier this year where Baltimore City implemented an eviction process, and apparently that applied for the entire state. Now, the gentleman's amendment simply is just trying to provide some uniformity across the state. You have contractors, at least in my area of St. Mary's, that might operate in Charles County, Calvert County, Prince George's, even up to Anne Arundel. It would be nice to have some uniformity so the contractors know what they're doing, so they're not inadvertently breaking a law like we saw with the landlord eviction process that we argued about for 2 days in this chamber. The gentleman's amendment is very reasonable, very reasonable. I want to ask the colleagues to just show some diversity of thought and vote green on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I urge the body to continue to reject this amendment on the grounds that contractors already have to deal with different laws for each jurisdiction when they have to deal with the codes for each jurisdiction when they're building or fixing property. So it's not uncommon for them to have different rules for different jurisdictions and how they operate. Again, I urge the body to reject this amendment.
Okay.
On the amendment, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment.
And certainly to the floor leader, I certainly appreciate that. With respect to zoning and other building codes and things like that, through normal contracting processes, that makes a lot of sense to have local authority. But when we're talking about a circumstance where there is a disaster, I think that is a slightly different circumstance, and I think that uniformity is important. I think that uniformity is important to ensure continuity. There is, for instance, the gentleman I spoke yesterday, there's a large apartment complex that's near my district that happens to cut across Baltimore City and Baltimore County lines. If there were ever a disaster in that complex, it's theoretically possible with this language here that contractors could be operating off of 2 different standards in the same apartment complex. So for those reasons, I think it's important to have uniformity with respect to these kinds of things, and I would press the amendment, Madam Speaker.
All right. Floor leader.
Again, I urge the body to reject the amendment. Again, even in the building of that complex on 2 different, within Baltimore City and Baltimore County, the contractors had to deal with 2 different laws and jurisdictions on coding and zoning. It's not uncommon for contractors to have to deal with different jurisdictions' rules. I think it's fair to give the responsibility to local jurisdictions. Furthermore, there's not uniformity on disasters, so the disasters will vary in different types of things. So I encourage the body to reject this amendment and allow for local jurisdictions to determine the parameters on how they would like to enforce non-solicitation rules. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Good. John Lay from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to make a comment in support of the amendment. It seems that we've heard a lot about that the contractors are going to understand the different jurisdictions with different rules. The problem is that when there's a major disaster, you have contractors coming from all over the United States because they want to make some money, and I've heard about this down in Florida, that they just swarm into the area that has been affected. So I think we can't assume that the contractors are going to know. So if Maryland has a set standard, it's going to be a lot better for folks coming to do work out of state because they'll know the rules of the road, and they're not going to know, oh, this is in Harford County, this is in Baltimore County, or whatever. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Again, I urge the body to reject this amendment on the grounds that, again, people who work in the services of contracting, providing disaster relief services, are used to working with different jurisdictions' rules. Furthermore, I don't think we really want a massive amount of people coming from out of state to do any type of work like that. But furthermore, I just urge the body to reject the amendment on the grounds that, again, we want local jurisdictions to be able to set the parameters around any type of disaster that happens in their jurisdiction that requires different, because of different layouts of different cities, different counties, different towns, they're going to need different rules and different parameters. I ask the body to reject the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? You have an additional amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it up here?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have an amendment at the desk, Madam Speaker. It's 883128/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise, please?
Floor reader.
Good morning.
Good morning. I want to first apologize for not getting this to you sooner. Literally, when I walked on the floor, they handed it to me, and I didn't think it would be up this quickly. And secondly, I would like to thank you for taking time yesterday to meet with our constituent that is in this restoration disaster remediation business. Thank you. I truly appreciate your time. And in response to our constituent, I know you said this will go across the street and there'll be an opportunity to work on it. But in reading the bill, I noticed that it says, an owner that rescinds a home improvement contract in accordance with this section may not be required to pay more than the amount of the penalty indicated in the contract. And so this amendment just says a homeowner that rescinds a home improvement contract in accordance with this subsection shall compensate the contractor for time and materials expended before rescission. So it's a T&M, just for the contractor to be able to not make money off of it, but to get the time and materials back on the work that they invested on behalf of the homeowner.
So I would have loved to have seen this amendment much sooner.
I'm sorry.
This is a really bad April Fool's joke.
I'd be happy to special order the bill and amendment.
we're gonna nip this in the bud right here. That's even the worst
Okay.
April Fool's joke.
Okay.
Ultimately, within the bill, we left space for the contractors who actually gave us this language. The contractors in this space are the ones that actually provided us with this language, and there's actually a blank spot in the bill that allows for the contractors to set the amount, right? So they can set the amount within that rescission language. They can say, hey, not to exceed $2,000. So whatever their materials are, or whatever they think they'll be able to accomplish in those 3 or 4 days, they can set that amount. So this amendment is not necessary. So I urge the body to reject this amendment.
Well, I appreciate that. I see it in the page right below it where it has that. This would actually be a good opportunity to protect the homeowner, because instead of a blank amount, and was a home improvement contractor for almost 40 years, so I get it, and we are licensed and insured, and people who respond to these disasters are local people. We're not having people from all over the country come. This bill is designed to help our local Maryland contractors. But this, I think, is a good amendment, floor leader, that would protect the homeowner. So instead of a blank fill in the amount, this would be a T&M. So, you're guaranteeing that the homeowner's wallet is respected.
Forgive me, I'm not sure I follow that it protects the homeowner, because in this situation, the person could put in $10,000 and they got to pay back $10,000. I'm not sure that I follow this would necessarily protect the homeowner. Again, I asked the body to reject this amendment. First of all, on the grounds that the actual industry is the one that gave us this language. It's a similar language from other states. So it's not as if this language came out of thin air. There's multiple people in the industry who actually testified in support of this bill who actually provided us with this rescission language. So it's this common rescission language. I asked the body to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Stand to support the gentlelady's amendment. I myself have actually benefited from these types of services before. I had a large windstorm at my house one time and had a good amount of the shingles blow off my roof. And I had a company come out very quickly and seal up my roof and tarp it and all that sort of stuff the next day. And probably prevented lots of other damage from occurring at my property, mold growth and things like that. I'm just concerned that if contractors inside of this industry are concerned about being made whole, if there are fears that they are not going to be made whole, there could be a chilling effect on the industry from this. This is an important industry. I don't think we want to do anything to discourage folks from participating in this industry. And I think that if there's even a thought that someone may not be made whole on a project and not even make profit, just getting back their time and materials, we could see folks leaving this industry. And I don't think that that's what we're trying to do here with this bill.
For the reasons stated earlier, I urge the body to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Okay. Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for
Madam
third
Speaker.
read. Yes.
May I have a vote change, please? 1348, Amendment 473625-1 to nay.
Special Order Calendar 56. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 40, Vehicle Laws, Towed, Removed, or Abandoned Vehicles, Electronic Notice to Owner. Favor report adopted.
Somebody standing up? Oh. Recognizing the maker of the motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Special Order Calendar number 57. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 351, Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2025. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
I couldn't see. Recognizing the Chair of Capital.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members of the House Delegates. The House Appropriations Committee recommends 118 amendments to House Bill 351, the capital budget for fiscal 2026. These amendments are indicated on the committee reprint and described in the committee report that was available on Monday. The committee took actions that are fair, balanced, and ensure that the capital budget represents all regions of the state. In approaching our work this year, the committee ensured that we addressed the state's capital infrastructure needs, assisted our communities, local governments, and local organizations, and remained within the level of the debt proposed by the Spending Affordability Committee and within the state's debt affordability limits. As has been the practice in the past, I will introduce the amendments in groups. After describing the amendments, I will then move for each group to be adopted. If any member has concerns about the specific amendment, please ask to have that amendment separated for debate. I ask members to hold additional amendments until after the committee amendments have been adopted. Please keep in mind that all amendments are to be drawn to the committee reprint. With your permission, Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the first group of amendments.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Move the adoption of amendment number 1.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendment number 1. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted.
Amendment numbers 2 through 7 pertain to the Interagency Commission on School Construction, the Board of Public Works, the Military Department, and the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. Move the adoption of amendments 2 through 7.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 2 through 7. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendments are adopted.
Amendments number 8 through 18 pertain to the University System in Maryland, Baltimore City Community College, and Morgan State University. Move the adoption of amendments 8 through 18.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 8 through 18. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. Question. Read the next.
Amendments 19 through 25 pertain to the Department of Housing and Community Development. Move the adoption of amendments 19 to 25.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 19 through 25. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted.
Amendments number 26 to 109 pertain to the miscellaneous grant programs. Move the adoption of amendments 26 through 109.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 26 through 109. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted.
Amendment number 10 pertains to the local house initiatives. Move the adoption of amendment number 110.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendment 110. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted.
Amendments number 111 to 118 pertain to the prior authorizations and pre-authorizations. Move the adoptions of amendments number 111 to 118.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 111 through 118. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted.
Madam Speaker, move for the adoption of the favor report as amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading.
Madam Speaker,
Yes,
I had a few questions of the floor leader. To
the bill is gone.
oh,
Poof.
April Fools. Yep, there we go, right here.
Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 37. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 349, medical debt, complaints for money judgment and real property liens, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 547, commission to study health insurance pooling establishment, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 587, State Government Maryland Reparations Commission, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading.
Madam Speaker, I was standing up the whole time.
You're standing up now.
Can we recommit this back to second reader? I was standing the entire time, so.
You can offer the amendment on third reader.
Well, I'd like to offer the amendment now because that's why I was standing. I'm just trying to follow the rules that you set in your rule book. So I'm following them. I'm just asking you to do so as well.
That's very cute. Okay. All right, now, let's go.
Are we still on?
Okay. Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just, look, for the good of the order, I mean, in all fairness, members were standing, and I know it gets busy.
Are we back on it?
What's that?
That's what I thought.
So I don't know if there's a ruling to be made, but the gentleman was standing respectfully, and he didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking because.
Well, he did before, so what's happening now? So
So we're trying to be respectful, but he was standing at the appropriate
Yeah, I
time.
hear you. You said that several times.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We haven't done that yet.
The motion is to move it back to second reading. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay. All right. Opposed? The ayes do have it. You don't want to know.
Ryan?
Is that right?
Go ahead.
So, Madam Speaker, the gentleman from Baltimore County has an amendment, as do I, so he's going to offer his. Ryan?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think this amendment is at the desk. I just got it. If not, I've got copies here. It's Amendment 273426/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
So this amendment, I think, is an important amendment to this debate. Okay, we good now? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I think this is an important amendment to this discussion, to this bill. So what this amendment does is it's really simple. So it would, and I'm going to read exactly what it does. It's 2 lines. It says, it would essentially insert Union soldiers or others who fought to end slavery, or individuals whose ancestors served in the Union Army or fought to end slavery. So basically, it would include those individuals into this conversation about reparations for the significant work that they did, frankly, to correct a wrong here in this country. Now, look, my ancestors weren't here at that time, but I can tell you that my ancestors were in Poland at that time and later on. What I do know, though, is that I had some American soldiers free some of my family members that were in a concentration camp, and I would do anything that I could to thank them for what they did there. That's exactly what this does, is it provides a pathway to thank those folks as well that played a significant role in ending slavery in this country. I think it's an important part of this debate. And I think that we should recognize, and this is also African American soldiers as well that fought on the side of the Union to end slavery in this country. So that's what this amendment would do. And Madam Speaker, I press the amendment.
Yes. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to start by saying, if you have amendments, I just got the amendments from all of you, like right now at this moment, which is no courtesy, does not allow one to prepare adequately. And if you come to HGO, I give you respect. I expect the same. That being said, regarding this amendment, just because you're a Union Army does not mean that you have suffered the injustices described in this bill. And let me tell you why. If you go to the bill and you look at page 2, line 1, it says inequitable government policies, right? Means federal, state, and local government policies during the periods commonly known as the post-Reconstruction era or the Jim Crow era. So what did you have during that era? During that era, they mandated racial segregation as policy in all public facilities. And the bill gives you those examples. They led to economic disparities based on race, right? We're talking about black people, including housing segregation. We're talking about black people, discrimination, redlining, which was actually targeted to black people. They could not live where they wanted to live. And even if I give you the example, for example, of our era, right? And you look at the GI Bill, when the black soldiers came back and they were loans offered to black and white soldiers, the black soldiers couldn't get those loans. They could not start a business. Okay, we're talking about restricted covenants that did not apply to white people. It applied to black people that could not live where they wanted to live because there was a contract that restricted that. You also had tax policies in here. It gives you different examples. I would say that this is very different from the purpose of the bill. And if the gentleman likes to put in a bill next year to do that, you can do that. Thank you. And I will ask the body to vote against this amendment and resist it.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Chair, I certainly apologize. That was not my intent to get you that last minute. It really was not. I have the utmost respect for you. I was busy working on that other bill this morning, and I certainly apologize for that. So that was not my intent there. With respect to redlining, blockbusting, all those sorts of things, I agree with you. Look, I'm part Catholic and I'm part Jewish, right? A lot of those policies also applied to those individuals. So I completely understand what you're saying with those things. There was a lot of covenances that said the Jewish people couldn't live in certain areas, for instance. So I totally get what you're saying there, and that makes sense to me. I do think, though, that there may have been some Union soldiers and or their ancestors that maybe weren't good people. I don't know. Who knows? There was a lot of people that fought in that war. But I think a lot of them probably were good. And I think a lot of them had the right intent, and they wanted to do the right thing for the country. They wanted to bring the country back together. I understand what you're saying about the other historical situations that occurred, but I do think that that was a significant contribution to ending a wrong in this country, and I think we should acknowledge that. And Madam Chair, I'm certainly willing next year to work with you on that as well, but I wanted to have this debate here about that.
So we have ways of acknowledging their good work, but reparations is not the way to do it. Okay, this is a different bill for different people. People that lived in the state benefited greatly from having their labor for free forced. And this is their day. This is a different bill. Okay, this is about repairing the damage done and caused by slavery. It is by the government, right? The state that we lived in, the way that we reside in. And this is a way to acknowledge that, to give it respect, and to try to, if the commission sees that it's right, if they see fit, I'm not saying what they're going to do, right? We don't know what's going to happen, to be able to make recommendations for Black enslaved people or descendant or people that were discriminated by the policies that we supported in this state. I ask the body, again, to resist this amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
There be 100 votes in the negative. The amendment fails. Yes.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It is amendment number 723-326/1.
Amendment number 1.
Be so much moved to the reading of the amendment, Madam Speaker.
So ordered.
So this amendment, folks, reads as follows. It provides for the use of school choice to provide the combined state and local per pupil funding to public or non-public schools located in or out of state for any student enrolled in a public school that has been given 1-star rating in the previous school year. So basically what that means is if you have a child or children stuck in a 1-star school, which means no one's learning, the money follows the student. And it's interesting, I see some individuals from Baltimore City laughing, thinking that somehow this is funny. where day in and day out there are kids that aren't learning in those schools, and there's some of us that are actually from Baltimore. Some of us just live there and move there, but I actually am from there, and I remember a time when the schools were struggling, but there was an effort to try to make them better. And the difference in my life was my parents. That's what made them better. That's what made us succeed. But what we have in so many parts of the state, and it's not just Baltimore, are schools where there is no literacy. There's no proficiency in math. There's no proficiency in English. So children are graduating illiterate. And the children stuck in those one-star schools are primarily black. I'm sure there are Hispanic kids there too and some white kids, but it's primarily black kids. And that's the way it's been in those one-star schools and in those communities for as long as I can remember. And during that entire period of time, the Democrat Party controlled every lever of government. So, what I don't understand is that this isn't included in this bill because we see the systemic inability of children to learn in these communities, and you're saying it's because of something that happened hundreds of years ago or 150 years ago. Excuse me, I stand corrected. And why not correct this problem now? Because generation after generation isn't learning, and they have no future. They have no ability to get a reasonably good job, no opportunity for a good job. And these kids are too poor to move. They're too poor to move. They can't move out of the community. They can't move to another school district. They don't even have the money. They're living from hand to mouth. They certainly can't send their kids to private school because they're so poor, something that some of us actually do understand. And so here is a reasonable amendment that allows the state and local dollars to follow those kids stuck in those schools where not a single person is learning. And that's on you. That's not from slavery. Instead, that's from the modern Democrat plantation of public education where kids aren't learning in one-star schools, and that's exactly what it is. You, the Democrat Party, have kept kids on the plantation of not learning. Laugh as you may, you own it because you're in charge. You've got the governor, you've got the legislature, you've got the AG, you control all of Baltimore City and so many of the counties where these bad schools are located. And Chris Pabst just put out a tweet saying, despite billions in new money invested, Maryland schools have fallen below the national average in SAT scores. That's 5 years after the blueprint. 5 years. Your policies are a disaster for public education in Maryland. A disaster. And there are some of us that have the courage to stand up because we did grow up poor, and we actually did grow up in Baltimore, and we do remember that time when people helped one another. And I'd like to see this happen once and for all, and it should be put inside this bill. Because I know I have no doubt that what some might say is, well, these kids, because they're black or Hispanic, they were discriminated against many years ago. Well, then stop discriminating against them. Give them an opportunity at a better school. You're discriminating against them. Have the money follow them. Good God, how many generations are you going to relegate to a life of no opportunity from these bad schools? I know there are Democrats that quietly support this. Here's your opportunity to put inside of a commission and make it possible once and for all to save a generation of kids that you have the gall to say are somehow in that situation because of someone else. Well, then fix it. Let's fix it right now. Let's fix it. Let's see if you'll accept this amendment. Or instead, if you use some other nonsensical reason why this isn't the right vehicle for it. Really? This is the right vehicle for it. This is where it belongs. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope you listen and you listen well, because I'm going to give you a little history. First, I would say to the body to resist your amendment because the bill covers it. If you look at page 4, line 13, it states they can look at any other topic deemed appropriate by the commission. But that's not enough. I want to give you a little history because I think it's important to understand why it is that this bill is needed, because of the history of slavery in Maryland and the role that our state that we live in played. So I received very impressive testimony from the School of Law, the Gibson Bank Center for Race and Law, and I'm going to read some of their testimony because it really touched me, and I didn't know this history. So from the time of its founding as a colony in 1634 until slavery's abolition in the state in 1864, the state of Maryland and its residents, I want to tell you why this is not our fault. So I want you to listen. Okay, the state of Maryland and its residents accumulated wealth, power, and privilege off of the brutal enslavement of Africans and their descendants. And let me tell you what this General Assembly did. Not us, obviously, but people like us. Legislative action facilitated the expansion of slavery in Maryland. In 1664, the Maryland General Assembly codified lifetime and hereditary slavery for enslaved black people. The law also consolidated a strict color line by providing that children born of a marriage between an enslaved black man and a white woman will be born enslaved. Against this legal backdrop and pursuant to the growing command for tobacco, let me tell you what Maryland did. Slavery in Maryland boomed as slaves no longer dribble into Maryland in small numbers. Rather, they entered the colony by boatful, crowded into the hulls of the ships under the worst conditions, dying. Nearly 100,000 enslaved people entered Maryland in the 3/4 of a century prior to the American Revolution. And by 1750, about 1/3 of the state population was black. As they labor on the tobacco plantations under the conditions that you can only imagine, they fuel the state's economy. Enslaved black people endure cruel and debilitating conditions, deadly diseases, and the relentless assault on dignity inherent in the institution of slavery. Rapes, families being divided, separated, because now we have all these people. Well, let's traffic them to other states and sell them because you made a lot of money. The abolition of slavery in Maryland in 1864, after more than 200 years of barbaric oppression, did not deliver justice or restitution to the institution's victims and their descendants. To the Maryland legislature, it did not. But the Maryland legislature did seek compensation for slave owners impacted by the emancipation. Now let's talk about Baltimore City, because everybody likes to pick on Baltimore City. Well, let me tell you something. Discriminatory housing practices play a pivotal role in perpetuating racial inequality in Maryland. In 1910, Baltimore became the first city in the nation to pass a residential segregation ordinance. that prohibited black people from moving into white neighborhoods, where you have the better schools, better houses, right? You have wealth. And that, Baltimore City was an inspiration for other cities and states to do the same. So you see, the problem of racially segregated housing in Maryland even got worse when you look at redlining. So this is not an issue that came about today, tomorrow, that came about 10 years ago, 20 years ago. This is an issue that we created as a state because we did not start in the same way. We started with a lot of disparities. So yes, today we're paying for it because when you live in certain neighborhoods, you have some of the schools are not very good. They're not good. And why? Because people cannot afford to live where you and I live. Why? Because they couldn't get those loans. Why? Because they didn't get paid like some of us do. And I know I'm not saying this to be offensive because you know me, but it is really tough to admit that there's such thing as privilege because of the color of your skin. And there is. And this is the situation that black people have lived for centuries, for decades, and they can't get caught up. Let's look at the examples of the prisons. 70% of the people incarcerated in Maryland are black. Let's look at health disparities. Black women die at a rate 4 times higher than white women. Let's look at education. You see the disparities. You went through it. So every single, facet of society, you see these disparities, whether it's illnesses, chronic illnesses. And where do they come from? They stem from our history. And it's very difficult to catch up. If you and I were in a race, and the race was that we had to reach the Washington Monument, and you started in D.C., and I started in Maryland, how in the world can I catch up to you? How can I win that race? So the question is, with this bill, why is it important? Why is it needed? It's needed to look at the history of slavery in Maryland to try to see what does the data say and what can we do to provide some remedy. Plain and simple. Because we do care about education. We do. And we care about all people. We do. So I ask the body to resist this amendment because, first of all, we, in the bill, in page 4, right, line 13, give the commission already flexibility to do so. But I really think it's important for us to know a little bit of the history and why it is that we have the data and the disparities today in every single subject. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Certainly appreciate the chairwoman's explanation of the bill. The problem is that the public school system, where you have one-star schools, that's a phenomenon that's been here for quite some time, and it's a modern phenomenon. And despite the billions of dollars spent on Thornton, and now on the Blueprint, which is in its 5th year, no kid testing proficient in math or in reading in those one-star schools. That's today. So why not put this very simple language that the money follows the children, the state and local money follows the kids, so they can go to a better option, since they're too poor to go somewhere else. I mean, this amendment literally obliterates everything you just heard for the chairwoman of the committee. that we need to make things right. Well, here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. And we know you won't adopt it because the teachers union is just so powerful in Maryland. They've got the biggest building in Annapolis next to the Department of Legislative Services. Shows you how much money they have and how much money they spread around. And they buy their influence year in and year out, and everybody in the Democrat Party is terrified of going against the teachers union because they might lose their primary. See, you're putting that ahead of the kids in these one-star schools. Why? Why would you do that? The chairwoman of the committee also mentioned prisons. Well, we do have a school-to-prison pipeline. It's from the one-star schools. When you're illiterate, you have no opportunity, no hope, and you go to prison eventually. Not every time, but many times. You have no economic opportunity. It's unsafe to walk to school. It's unsafe in some cases to take the bus to school in certain communities. So I just don't understand why this language is so scary to you to put into this particular bill where it probably belongs, so that we can actually have a study. Your argument is, well, any other topic deemed appropriate by the commission. Really? So this isn't appropriate? This isn't a specific topic that should actually be looked at? How can anyone in the Democrat Party look at themselves and think this is okay to delete, to not have in this commission? You know it's the right thing to do. Why don't you vote for your conscience for change instead of for the teachers union? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What the good gentleman is suggesting is a remedy. And it's a remedy that the commission will look at all these issues, the impact of slavery, and make recommendations to help the black community where Maryland for decades passed policies to put them down. And I hope to see a green vote from you at the end of the day if you care so much about this issue, because trust me, the commission will be looking at all these issues that are all relevant. Please resist. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker. Roll call.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Pass. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 956, Health Insurance Medicare Supplement Policies, Insurance Producer Commission, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 40. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 248, Department of Service and Civic Innovation, Maryland Corps Program Service Year Option Pathways, revisions, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 38. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 357, Prescription Drug Affordability Board Authority and Stakeholder Council Membership, Lowering Prescription Drug Costs for All Mail Owners Now Act. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 provides that a specified report will include information to the extent practicable that clarifies that the Prescription Drug Affordability Board is prohibited from applying an upper payment limit to a drug in a current shortage. Amendment number 2 clarifies that upper payment limits will be set through regulations and clarifies that specified provisions of the law do not apply to purchases or payer reimbursements by federal agencies or federal programs that the state is preempted from regulating by federal law. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 474, Health Insurance Adverse Decisions, Notices, Reporting, and Examinations. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 and 3 conform to HB 848 by requiring denial and grievance notices to include certain information at the top of the notice in prominent and bold print, to requiring private review agents to make available a phone number and email address dedicated to utilization review that will be responded to within 2 business days, and 3, requiring specified information to be reported by zip code. The amendments also require a private review agents to post specific criteria and a standard to be used in utilization review on the members and providers pages of its website. Clarify the requirement to respond to voicemail or emails within 2 business days only applies if a shorter time period is not otherwise required, and alter the effective date for certain provision of the bill. Move the committee amendment, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 39. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 962, Public Health Pediatric Hospital Overstay Patients. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 alters the definition of pediatric overstay patient, requires a hospital to seek transfer of a pediatric hospital overstay patient if the patient remains in the hospital for more than 48 hours and the bed registry indicates that an appropriate inpatient bed is available. It establishes a pediatric overstay coordinator in both the Maryland Department of Health and the Department of Human Services instead of in the Governor's Office for Children. It requires the pediatric overstay coordinators to act in the best interests of pediatric overstay patients by coordinating between hospitals, state agencies and programs and providers, and strikes language requiring a certain budget appropriation from the governor sufficient to fill all authorized positions for Regional Institute for Children and Adolescents. Amendment number 3 strikes the requirement that the Maryland Department of Health review certain reimbursement rates and submit a certain report, and establishes a work group on children in unlicensed setting and pediatric overstays in the state. Move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now to adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
A lot of empty chairs. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading House bills, number 119. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 384, Maryland Disability Service Animal Program, established.
House Bill 384 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 384, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 757, Professional and Volunteer Firefighter Innovative Cancer Screening Technologies Program, funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 757, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 793, University System of Maryland Academic Facilities Bonding Authority.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 793, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1126, Unemployment Insurance Child Support Arrearage to Work Pilot Program, established.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 120 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1126, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1470, Prince George's County, Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Critical Area Protection Program, cutting or clearing trees.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1470, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 5, Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, State-Based Young Adult Health Insurance Subsidies Pilot Program, sunset repeal.
Senate Bill 5 is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 5, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 43, Maryland Department of Health Forensic Review Board, established.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 43, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 47, State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners, revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 47, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 590, Motor Vehicles Reckless, Negligent, and Aggressive Driving, Sergeant Patrick Kepp Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 590, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 618, Vehicle Laws, Licenses, Identification Cards, and Moped Operators Permits, Notation of Non-Apparent Disability, Eric's ID Law.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 618, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 707, Vehicle Laws, Medical Exemption for Enhanced Tinted Windows, Time Limitation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 707, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to be, my finger did not work for SB 618. I would like to be recorded as green. Thank you.
Vote change HB 384 to red.
Any other vote changes? Get your slips up here. So. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 72, Health Occupations Boards, English proficiency requirements, and licensure by endorsement for nursing.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 106 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 72, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 85, Braille Flag Memorial Act of 2025.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 85, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 174, Interstate Social Work Licensure Compact.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 174, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 641, Health Insurance Required Coverage Hearing Aids.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 641, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 674, Maryland Commission for Women, Maryland Collaborative to Advance Implementation of Coverage of Over-the-Counter Birth Control.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 674, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 790, Behavioral Health Advisory Council and the Commission on Behavioral Health Care Treatment and Access plan to implement early and periodic screening, diagnostic, and treatment requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 790, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 795, State Procurement Preferences, Blind Industries and Services of Maryland Packaging and Repackaging.
It's on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 795, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I have vote change SB 174 to green.
Any other vote changes?
Yes, House Speaker. Thank you, ma'am. House Bill 85 to yes.
Okay. Get your gold slips up. Any other vote changes? Okay.
Senate Bill, I'm sorry.
That's okay, we will now. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 18. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 103, Boating Accidents Reporting Requirement, Property Damage.
It's on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 103, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 162, Agriculture Departmental Authority over Identification, Inspection, and Sale of Cantaloupes, repeal.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 162, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 238, Department of Housing and Community Development, Maryland Housing Rehabilitation Program, Local Rehabilitation Program Administration.
It's on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 238, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 436, Maryland Department of Labor Study on Building Code Requirements for Single Staircase Buildings.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 113 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 436, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 606, Residential Real Property Tenants' Right of First Refusal.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 606, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 722, Department of the Environment, Definition of Ecological Restoration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Or is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 722, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
All right, I'm making mistakes on these Senate bills. Senate Bill 238, I'd like to be recorded in the green. The other one that I had, I want to make sure that was a Senate Bill 174 that I was calling. I may have called it a House bill.
Okay. Yes.
Madam Speaker,
Uh-huh.
I'd like to change my vote. Senate Bill 606 to nay. Thank you.
Any other vote changes? You're standing up. Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Senate Bill 238 to yay.
Any other vote changes? Make sure you get the gold slips up. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 19. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 9, Maryland Higher Education Commission Academic Program Approval Revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 9, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 142, Marriage Confidential Communication.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 142, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 273, Peace Orders and Protective Orders, Military Protection Orders.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 273, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 274, Criminal Procedure, Child Victims, Testimony in Child Abuse Cases.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 274, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 347, Adult Protective Services, Investigations and Disclosure of Information.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 347, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 548, Family Law, Child Custody Determinations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? Not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 548, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 669, Public Safety Rape Kit Testing, Tracking Program and Grant Fund.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 669, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. That ends the work at the desk.
Madam Speaker, vote change.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Senate Bill 174, nay to yay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senate Bill 238, 2 yea.
Any other vote changes? Okay. All right, before I go through the end of session stuff, we'll be back here at 4 p.m. 4 o'clock p.m. today. Okay? Anybody not understand that? Okay. Committee announcements, appropriations,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Appropriations Committee will vote at 3:45.
judiciary,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House Judiciary Committee will have a voting session beginning at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Subcommittee chairs a meeting at 1 o'clock.
environment and transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will meet for bill hearings at 1 p.m. and listen up for subcommittee announcements.
Okay. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will meet for a voting session at 1:30 p.m. Please listen up to subcommittee announcements.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will have a subcommittee chairs meeting at 12:30, followed by hearings at 1 p.m. with a quick voting session. It should be brief.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will have bill hearings at 1 o'clock, followed by voting, and please listen to subcommittee announcements. Thank you.
Okay. Speaking of such, subcommittee announcements. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Housing and Real Property Subcommittee will meet today at 3:30 p.m. 3:30 p.m. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Education Subcommittee Ways and Means will meet at 12:15 if we don't go too long afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Local Government Subcommittee of E&T will meet immediately following the bill hearings, probably around 1:30.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Election Law Subcommittee will meet immediately following the Education Subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Local Revenue Subcommittee will meet immediately following Election Law Subcommittee.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Early Childhood Subcommittee will be fourth in the lineup in Ways and Means after Local Revenues.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a reminder to the Natural Resources Subcommittee, we are not meeting usually as we do today. We are not meeting.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee will meet at 3 p.m. today.
Okay. Any other sub?
Madam
Yes.
Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The Public Health and Minority Health Disparities Subcommittee will be meeting immediately after floor.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Family and Juvenile Law Subcommittee meeting will be at 1:45, right before our voting session in Judiciary, and it will be in person. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Insurance and Pharmaceutical Subcommittee will be meeting immediately after the floor on Zoom. Thank you.
Any other subcommittee announcements? Okay. Seeing none. Any delegation announcement? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Anne Arundel delegation will meet in the Silver Room, which is right outside this hallway to the right. Thank you.
Any other? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Howard County House delegation will meet outside chamber tomorrow morning, 9:50.
Any other? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Baltimore County House Delegation will meet at 8 a.m. on Zoom tomorrow morning.
Okay. Yes.
Apologies, Madam Speaker. Right after session, Silver Room. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other delegation announcements? Okay. Any caucus announcements? Caucus announcement. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. The Sears Circle Caucus will be convening on Monday. And just in case, ladies and gentlemen, I want to expand our caucus subcommittee. Madam Chair, may I provisionally use the delegate's name?
Permission.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sears Circle Caucus is indeed expanding. We now have 2 vice chairs. May I introduce to you Delegate Vaughn Stewart. May I also introduce to you Delegate Wims, dressed appropriately, who is absent in the lounge.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We sincerely appreciate your professional and appropriate attire on Monday. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Madam
Yes,
Speaker?
yes. Okay.
Would the chair of the Seersucker Caucus please yield for a question?
Uh-oh.
I'm just wondering, are there any women in the Seersucker Caucus? You mentioned 2 subcommittee chairs and none were women.
There are a number of fabulous delegates in the Seersucker Caucus, yes, and more are welcome. We welcome all of the fabulous delegates into the Seersucker Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else? Yes. Since we're going down the-
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Body, just a friendly reminder that the German caucus will be holding its annual evening tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at the Old Stein. I want to highlight, Germans were among the first Europeans to arrive in North America in the 1600s, largest group of immigrants in the 19th century with nearly 8 million arrivals. Today, approximately 40 million Americans claim German heritage. We'd like to invite each and every one of you out tomorrow night. Permission to use delegate's name?
Permission granted.
On behalf of myself and Delegate Hornberger, 7 p.m., the Old Stein in Edgewater. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're quite welcome. Any other caucus announcements? Okay. All righty. Any personal or guest announcement? Yes.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to use the delegate's name?
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Wu and myself, I wanted to welcome the Doctor of the Day, who hails from beautiful District 9A, Dr. Anuradha Reddy. She's a rheumatologist. She's legislative chair of the MedChi Health Insurance and past president of Baltimore City Medical Society. Welcome to Annapolis. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know we'll all be returning at 4 p.m. on the dot later today, but I do want to remind everyone that while we have very spirited debate, it is always important not to impugn the character of one another. So just another gentle reminder for the remainder of our week here.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I'd like to welcome to the gallery today a very, very special resident of the fighting 41st District, someone who is on the front lines of ensuring that citizens that are returning home from our prisons and our jails are able to reintegrate into society in the most effective and positive and powerful ways. Not only is she a resident of District 41, but she is a resident of my neighborhood. Her organization, No Struggle, No Success, focuses on creating personalized reentry home plans that incorporate effective prevention strategies. She also works with youth, and we should be very confident in our votes on the Second Look Act and other reforms that are generated towards making sure we have positive reentry policies in our state. And so I'd like you all to welcome the incomparable Jeanette Graham, who is in our back gallery. Thank you for being here.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you. And I know that Women's History Month was ended yesterday, but I really feel strongly the need to recognize Zora Neale Hurston, because this is her centennial of her literary career, and that only happens once in a lifetime. Zora Neale Hurston, and especially given the engagement conversation we just had earlier today. You know, she was born in the Jim Crow South and attended eventually Morgan State University upon moving to Baltimore. Eventually she attended Howard, and she then went on to go to Barnard College, Columbia University. She's a class of 1928, the first woman of color to ever graduate Barnard. And to me, that's a special, somebody I look up to. Zora was somebody I looked up to because that's my alma mater. She just arrived in New York with $1.50 in her pocket. And her contributions as a renowned writer, anthropologist, American folklorist, filmmaker, and playwright are renowned. And she portrayed racial struggles in the earliest 20th century American South. And one of her 4 most popular novels being Their Eyes Were Watching God, published in 1937. In her lifetime, she wrote over 50 literary works, and she contributed to many magazines and newspapers to make a living. She even did anthropological work in Jamaica, Haiti, and Honduras, and which she published, and even worked with Margaret Mead. While there's much of what I love of Hurston, what I love most is that she lived life in her own terms. She was married and divorced 3 times. She had no children, which was an extreme rarity for the times. She identified as a Republican and was fiercely independent, often taking opposing positions from her African American contemporaries at the time, and yet remaining and retaining her joie de vivre. In 1960, a penniless Hurston was moved to a welfare home in Florida where she died and buried in an unmarked grave within the lifetime of many sitting in this room. In 1997, novelist Alice Walker found her unmarked grave, marked it, and highlighted her genius. After Hurston's death, a yardman was found burning her papers and belongings, but was stopped by a friend of Hurston's that happened to be walking by her house. Her friend stored her things under his porch until he could find someone willing to take the archives, which turned out to be the University of Florida. Other universities have also received other works. But at the end of the day, even though much of her work went into obscurity, she inspired many female authors, such as Natasaki Shange, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker. And she highlighted and she found an enlightened audience in the latter half of her centennial literary celebration. Sadly, Hurston never received any accolades in her lifetime. Posthumously, her works have been republished and her contributions have been recognized. In 1994, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, and to this day, others benefit financially from her contributions, and so do we. And with that, when we know better, we do better. So this is your reparations Black Women's History Moment. Thank you.
Okay. Any other personal? John. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I asked the House to help me just welcome my aunt, Linda Blonsky, from Hamden, and her friend from Utah, who's very involved in some politics in the Utah legislature. His name is Scott Hansen. They're up in the gallery.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, please help me in joining I think they're still up in the gallery, hope so. 17 students, homeschooled students from District 36 that are here today.
Is there any other?
They left 10 minutes ago.
Are there any other personal or guest announcements? Okay. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Tuesday, April 1st at 4:00 p.m., legislative date March 16th.